The vast emptiness of space stretched before the UES Perseus, its hull gleaming under the distant light of twin stars. The viewing deck was silent, save for the soft hum of life support systems and the occasional beep from monitoring equipment. Captain Elena Rourke stood motionless, her weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass as she stared into the abyss that had consumed countless ships before hers. "The dead zone," she whispered, more to herself than to the officer standing respectfully behind her. For decades, this region of space had been cordoned off by both the Galactic Federation and the Imperial Jalen. Any military or civilian vessel that approached had vanished without a trace. Strange distortions, sudden communication failures, and observatory reports of unexplainable spatial disruptions had led to its quarantine. Both powers had sent numerous probe ships over the years, but none had ever returned. The year was 3678 by the new galactic calendar. Spacecraft technology had advanced tremendously, but the will to explore every corner of the universe remained severely limited. The dead zone's coordinates lay approximately 15 parsecs from the border of the Jalen Empire, situated between two young star systems and a haven for space pirates. Surrounding the dead zone was a gray space, unusual ionized gas clouds that frequently interfered with sensors. This interference had helped maintain the mystery of what lay beyond. "Captain," the officer finally broke the silence. "High Command is requesting confirmation of our approach vector." Elena turned, her eyes hard with determination. A former Galactic Alliance officer who had lost her unit in a skirmish with space pirates, she now commanded the heavy-class destroyer UES Perseus of Earth's Defense Forces. "Tell them we're proceeding as planned. Engage stealth protocols once we cross the outer sensor array." Her mission was clear: discover the origin of the dead zone and prove to the Galactic Alliance that the boundaries of space should not always be blockaded. There were answers out there, and humanity deserved to find them. Thousands of kilometers away, aboard the Jalen scout vessel, Vigilant Claw, Captain Arcthos Varen reviewed the latest sensor readings with growing concern. The tall, copper-skinned Jalen commander had a deep-seated animosity toward humans, a grudge born from the border wars decades earlier. "Another anomaly," his sensor officer reported. "Brief energy spike at coordinates 227-834-011. Arcthos frowned, his angular features hardening. "That's the third one this cycle, and it's moving closer to the edge of the dead zone." His mission was different from Elena's: to protect the sacred inviolability of Jalen space and prevent any chaotic actions by Earthlings. When Jalen scout ships detected a strange signal from the edge of the dead zone, they reported to the Galactic Summit. Simultaneously, Earth decided to send the UES Perseus to penetrate the dead zone, despite warnings. The simultaneous preparations of both sides only increased political tensions. Aboard the Perseus, the sensor array suddenly activated. "Captain," called the young officer monitoring communications, "we're picking up something unusual. A short pulse, like an echo of a voice mixed with screaming." Elena rushed to the console, her heart racing. "Origin?" "Central dead zone, ma'am, and—" The officer hesitated. "It's in some ancient language. I can't identify it." At the same moment, Jalen radar detected a strange void structure with an odd shape that flashed for a few seconds before disappearing. The signal was the catalyst Earth's Joint Chiefs had been waiting for. The special order came through encrypted channels. If the dead zone is truly generating life or energy, we cannot stand aside. Captain Elena Rourke accepted the risk, leading an elite crew, a combination of soldiers and scientists, into the dead zone. The Perseus approached the gray space at the edge of the dead zone. The ship's sensors began flashing warnings. "Extreme interference, visibility at 2%, reported the sensor operator, his voice tense. A small, localized explosion rocked the ship, temporarily disrupting the AI tactical nexus and forcing Elena to switch to manual control. Status report, she demanded, gripping her command chair as the ship stabilized. Minor damage to subsystems. Captain, the AI will reboot in approximately 3 minutes, reported Lieutenant Commander Reyes, the chief engineer. We're flying blind until then, Elena muttered. Maintain course. The microwave map blazed red, showing micro-black holes appearing every second, and several wave-blocking objects suddenly distorting in bizarre ways. As they ventured deeper, they encountered the first physical evidence of previous expeditions. Debris fields of metal scattered throughout space, remnants of Jalen squadrons and Galactic Alliance ships lost here. Captain, called the communications officer, I'm picking up a distorted SOS signal. Help. Us. The signal cut off abruptly. Elena felt her pulse quicken. Someone might still be alive out there, but a classified order from Earth reminded her. Forbidden to disclose to Jalen that we have entered the restricted zone. She hesitated, torn between keeping secrets and her responsibility to fellow sentient beings. Dr. Mara Healy, the chief scientific officer and Elena's primary assistant, approached the captain's chair. Are we really doing this for science, Captain? She asked quietly. Or are we pawns in some political game? Elena didn't answer immediately. The question touched on her own internal conflict. Was she risking the lives of her crew to satisfy political or scientific ambition? Before she could respond, the tactical officer shouted, Proximity alert! Jalen scout ship detected at coordinates 115-338-042. They've followed us. Elena realized. Captain Arcthos Varen had intercepted a fragment of Perseus's signal and decided to dispatch a pursuit team. The two fleets, already hostile toward each other, were now unwillingly competing to explore the dead zone. A strange ripple burst suddenly emanated from the central dead zone, temporarily tearing local space. Both Perseus and the Jalen fleet had to duck into temporary blind spots to avoid crew casualties. What was that? Elena demanded as the ship stabilized. Dr. Healy was already analyzing the data. Some kind of quantum shockwave. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. As they pushed deeper into the dead zone, the true enemy finally revealed itself. The crew of the Perseus stared in horror at the main view screen as the sensors captured the first direct images of what lurked within. Enormous structures resembling organic metal, absorbing surrounding light like artificial black holes. They moved with arbitrary speed, absorbing hull plasma and spacecraft materials without expending any energy. Reximorphs, Dr. Healy whispered, giving a name to the monstrosities. Dead zone devourers, someone else murmured. When Perseus entered the third ring of the dead zone, a massive Reximorph, twice the volume of the ship, lunged toward them, its metallic tentacles beginning to wrap around the hull. Elena commanded the combat staff to regain control of the propulsion engine, pushing oscillation below the saturation threshold. Evasive maneuvers, she ordered. All weapons, target the central mass. But their weapons seemed to have little effect. The energy beams were simply absorbed into the creature's body. The Jalen fleet, having followed them into the dead zone, opened fire on the Reximorph. But half their fleet was devoured in an instant. The surviving Jalen captains on the few, temporarily revived ships sent out a desperate warning. They are not individual organisms. They are a composite system. Perseus was forced to temporarily retreat. The damage was severe. Half of the vital control room was damaged, and connection with the AI was lost. Elena had to decide between attempting to withdraw or sacrificing everything to investigate deeper. Dr. Healy made a crucial discovery during the brief respite. The Reximorphs are attracted to quantum energy waves emitted from a structure deeper inside, where the enemy is hibernating. According to our damaged maps, there's a nano-flare pit that might be their only weakness. Elena faced a terrible dilemma. Continue to break deeper into the dead zone, which meant certain annihilation, or retreat to Earth and await orders, risking the awakening and catastrophic spread of the Reximorphs. Finally, she chose to press on. As Perseus approached what Dr. Healy had identified as the nanoflare pit, they witnessed a stunning sight, a structure of pulsating white light, an ancient quantum server once created by the Erytheon civilization to freeze and seal the Rexamorphs. Dr. Healy worked with engineer Reyes to restore the quantum signal, transplanting the programming prototype back to freezing state. However, the Erytheon protection mechanism was damaged, and the Rexamorphs were beginning to resist commands. Elena made a desperate decision. She would direct Perseus straight into the nanoflare center to trigger a quantum explosion, not just to seal the Rexamorphs, but to destroy them completely. But doing so meant sacrificing the anchor ship in the explosion. The crew was divided. Some officers wanted to retreat, as the quantum explosion could wipe out both the fleet and the Rexamorphs. Others, like Combat Sergeant Malik Jung, proposed activating it and then skimming out in personal spacecraft. Elena remained resolute. She remembered her promise before departure. "If we die there, I at least want to bring back a warning for the galaxy." She ordered any ships with enough energy to stick with Perseus. Perseus activated the quantum furnace, releasing extreme energy. A white shockwave exploded, swallowing the Rexamorphs and creating a new, empty area, a clean zone, where no trace of the enemy remained. When the explosion occurred, signals from Perseus and any ship following it instantly vanished. The entire dead zone now displayed only a dark, static space, without light rays or radio waves. The surrounding stars flickered off for a few seconds, then returned to normal. Earth officially reported, "Perseus and crew did not return. Survival probability is near zero, but the achievement is that the dead zone has disappeared." The Jalen were confused. They couldn't stop us from entering the dead zone. Now is the dead zone clean? Or did they self-destruct? We must dispatch reconnaissance ships urgently. The Galactic Federation quarantined the new space for survey. Exploration ships recorded a stable environment. Sensors reported tiny quantum energy still remaining as evidence of the explosion. The legacy of Perseus lived on. The Galactic Science Committee established the Elena Rourke Scholarship for officers and scientists who risked exploring dangerous space areas. A memorial at the nearest pair of star systems was named Perseus to commemorate the raid into the dead zone. When a Zalen exploration ship approached the clean zone, they detected a faint quantum signal pulse, like an echo of the Rexamorphs, that no one could decode. The message simply repeated, "We are returning." Dr. Mara Healy, at an observation station on Earth, looked at the radar and thought to herself, perhaps the Rexamorphs were only displaced to another space, about to return. The open ending hinted at the risk of Phase 3 beginning. The observation deck of the UES Perseus was unusually quiet. The normal hum of conversation had been replaced by a tense silence as Captain Elena Rourke gazed through the reinforced viewport at the anomaly that had claimed countless lives. The dead zone loomed before them, a region of space that appeared no different from any other at first glance, yet contained mysteries that had devoured entire fleets. "Status report," Elena commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of their mission. Lieutenant Kim, her navigation officer, responded without looking up from her console. "We're maintaining position at the outer boundary. Captain, all systems operational, but sensors are already experiencing interference patterns." Elena nodded, her weathered face revealing nothing of the turmoil within. At 53, she had seen more combat than most fleet commanders twice her age. The scars on her left cheek were a permanent reminder of the space pirate ambush that had claimed her previous command and most of her crew. That day had taught her that hesitation meant death in the void, a lesson she carried into every mission since. "Dr. Healy," she called to the science officer who stood analyzing data at a nearby station. "Your assessment?" Mara Healy looked up from her readings, pushing a strand of gray-streaked hair behind her ear. At 47, she was the foremost expert on quantum physics and cosmic history in Earth's defense forces. Having abandoned a prestigious academic career to join the military after losing her family in the border wars. "The dead zone defies conventional physics, Captain," she replied. "The boundary layer is exhibiting properties consistent with spatial distortion, but nothing like natural phenomena we've documented. These readings suggest something artificial." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Artificial? You're suggesting the dead zone was created?" "I'm suggesting it's not a random cosmic event. Whether it was created deliberately, or is the byproduct of something else." Dr. Healy shrugged. "We won't know until we venture further." The captain turned to face the viewport again, studying the seemingly normal expanse of space before them. For decades, both the Galactic Alliance and the Jalen Empire had enforced a strict quarantine of this region. Dozens of exploration vessels had ventured past the boundary, and none had returned. Sensor probes sent in detected strange distortions before going silent. Observation posts recorded inexplicable spatial ruptures. And now, Perseus was about to deliberately breach that boundary. "Captain," the communications officer called. "Incoming transmission from Earth Command. Priority Alpha." Elena moved to the central command console. "Put it through!" The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern face of Admiral Terrence, Earth's Joint Chief of Operations. "Captain Rourke," he began without preamble. "Our long-range sensors have detected unusual activity within the dead zone, a signal pattern that matches no known cosmic phenomenon or communication protocol. This confirms our suspicions that something intelligent may be operating within the quarantine zone." Elena maintained her composure. "Have you shared this information with the Galactic Alliance?" "Negative. This operation remains classified. The Alliance has repeatedly denied our request to investigate the dead zone, citing the Jalen objections. But if something inside poses a threat to Earth or our colonies, we cannot stand idle due to political sensitivities." "Understood, Admiral." "Your orders remain unchanged. Captain, penetrate the dead zone, identify the source of the anomalies, and if possible, determine whether it represents a threat. But under no circumstances are you to reveal your mission to Jalen forces. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear, sir." As the transmission ended, Elena felt the familiar weight of command settle more heavily on her shoulders. She turned to find Dr. Healy watching her with an unreadable expression. "Political games," the scientist said quietly. "While we risk our lives." "It's more complicated than that," Elena replied. "The Jalen would never allow this investigation. They've blocked every official request for decades." "And why do you think that is?" Healy asked. "Perhaps they know something we don't." Before Elena could respond, the ship's AI, Tactical Nexus, spoke through the overhead speakers. "Captain, I've detected a Jalen patrol vessel at coordinates 227-834-0111. They appear to be conducting a sensor sweep of the dead zone perimeter." Elena moved quickly to the tactical display. "Show me." The screen shifted to display a sleek, copper-colored vessel hovering at the edge of the dead zone. The distinctive angular design was unmistakably Jalen. "They've been making increasingly frequent patrols," Lieutenant Kim noted. "This is the third one this week." "Something's got them nervous," Elena mused. "Tactical, can you identify the commander?" After a moment's pause, the AI responded. "Based on transmission patterns and command protocols, I believe the vessel is under the command of Captain Arcthos Varen." Elena's expression darkened. Varen had a reputation as a hardliner, deeply suspicious of humans and fiercely protective of what he considered Jalen interests. If he discovered Perseus's true mission, he would not hesitate to intervene, potentially with force. "Maintain stealth protocols," she ordered. "I want us to slip past their patrol without detection. Set course for the outer boundary of the dead zone. 1/4 impulse until we're past the Jalen scanner range, then full power." As the crew acknowledged her orders, Elena returned to the viewport, studying the distant Jalen vessel. The tension between Earth and the Jalen Empire had existed for generations, a cold war of suspicion and occasional flare-ups of violence. The border wars had claimed millions of lives before an uneasy peace was established. And now, she was about to risk reigniting that conflict by violating one of the most strictly enforced quarantines in known space. "Captain," Dr. Healy said softly, coming to stand beside her. "I need to ask, why you? You could have refused this mission, taken a comfortable command patrolling Earth colonies. Why volunteer for what might be a one-way journey?" Elena didn't answer immediately, her eyes fixed on the stars beyond the viewport. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because sometimes, Doctor, the boundary isn't there to keep us out. Sometimes it's there to keep something else in. And if that's the case with the dead zone, if something dangerous is contained within it, then someone needs to know. Someone needs to bring back the warning." The scientist studied her face. "Even if that warning costs the lives of everyone aboard this ship?" Elena turned to meet her gaze directly. "Especially then. Aboard the Vigilant Claw." Captain Arcthus Varen reviewed the sensor readings with growing unease. The dead zone had always been a source of concern for the Jalen Empire, but recently, the anomalies had increased in both frequency and intensity. "Another energy fluctuation," his sensor officer reported. "Similar to the previous ones, but stronger." Arcthus stroked his copper-toned chin thoughtfully. The dead zone had been quarantined for generations, and for good reason. The Jalen had lost entire battle groups to its mysterious forces. But there was more to the quarantine than public knowledge. Secrets that only the highest levels of Imperial command were privy to. "Any sign of that Earth vessel we detected earlier?" he asked. "Negative, Captain. They appear to have withdrawn to a safe distance." Arcthos wasn't convinced. The humans had been pushing for access to the dead zone for years, claiming scientific interest, but he knew better. Humans were expansionists by nature, always seeking new resources, new territories to claim. If they discovered what truly lay within the dead zone. His thoughts were interrupted by an urgent alert from his communications officer. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from High Command. Priority 1. Arcthos moved swiftly to the secure communications terminal. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to Grand Admiral Genva, one of the 12 members of the Imperial High Council. "Captain Varen," the Admiral began without preamble, "our long-range sensors have detected unusual activity within the dead zone. We believe the humans may be planning an unauthorized expedition." "I've been monitoring an Earth vessel in the vicinity," Arcthos confirmed. "But they've maintained their distance from the boundary." "Do not be deceived. Earth Command has dispatched their advanced destroyer, Perseus, to the region. Intelligence suggests they plan to penetrate the dead zone." Arcthos felt a cold anger build within him. "That would violate every treaty and agreement established after the border wars." "Indeed. Your orders are to prevent any incursion into the dead zone. Use diplomatic means if possible, but you are authorized to employ force if necessary. The humans must not learn what lies within." "Understood, Admiral. I will not fail." As the transmission ended, Arcthos turned to his navigation officer. "Set an intercept course for the Earth vessel's last known position. Maximum speed." The Perseus slipped silently through space, its advanced stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. On the bridge, Elena watched as the boundary of the dead zone drew closer on the main display. "We're approaching the Gray Veil," Lieutenant Kim announced, referring to the cloud of ionized gases that marked the outer edge of the anomaly. "All hands to battle stations," Elena ordered. "Shields at maximum. Dr. Healy, begin your scans as soon as we cross the boundary." As the crew prepared for the crossing, Elena felt a moment of doubt. She was about to lead her ship and crew into territory from which no one had ever returned, based on orders motivated as much by political ambition as scientific curiosity. The weight of command had never felt heavier. "Captain," the tactical officer called suddenly. "I'm detecting a transmission, extremely faint, coming from within the dead zone." Elena moved quickly to his station. "Can you isolate it?" "Attempting to now." The officer's fingers flew over his console. "It's fragmented, distorted. But there's definitely a pattern. It almost sounds like voices." A cold sensation crept up Elena's spine. "Put it on speakers." The bridge was filled with a crackling static, punctuated by what might have been words, though in no language Elena recognized. Beneath the unintelligible sounds was something else, what seemed like screams of pain or terror. "Can you clean it up?" she asked. Dr. Healy had already moved to the communication station, adjusting settings with practiced efficiency. "There's something interfering with the signal, some kind of quantum distortion. I can't fully isolate it, but—" She broke off as a clearer burst of sound emerged from the speakers. A voice, distorted but recognizable as humanoid, crying out, "Help! Us!" Then silence. "Signal lost," the communications officer reported. Elena exchanged a glance with Dr. Healy. "Could it be survivors from a previous expedition?" "Possibly," the scientist replied, though her expression was skeptical. "But given how long the dead zone has been quarantined, that seems unlikely. No known species could survive that long without support." "Unless time works differently in there," Lieutenant Kim suggested. "Some of the theoretical models for the dead zone include temporal distortion." "Speculation won't get us answers," Elena said firmly. "We proceed as planned." She turned to the helm. "Take us in, 1/4 impulse. Maintain stealth protocols." The Perseus edged forward, crossing the invisible boundary into the gray veil. Almost immediately, the ship's systems began to react. "Sensor interference increasing," reported the tactical officer. "Visibility down to 60% and dropping." "Compensate as best you can," Elena ordered. "Maintain course." As they penetrated deeper into the gray veil, the interference grew worse. Warning signals flashed across multiple consoles. "Extreme interference! Visibility at 2%, the sensor operator called out, tension evident in his voice. Elena gripped the arms of her command chair. "Stay calm. This is expected. Continue on course." Suddenly, a small explosion rocked the ship, sending several crew members stumbling. "Status report," Elena demanded. "Localized power surge in the main AI core." Engineer Reyes reported from engineering. "The tactical nexus is offline. Automatic systems are failing." "Switch to manual control," Elena ordered. "All stations, report readiness." As the crew confirmed their status, Dr. Healy studied her scanner with growing concern. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual quantum activity ahead. Something like micro-black holes, appearing and disappearing in microsecond intervals." "On screen," Elena commanded. The main view screen flickered, showing the space ahead of them. What they saw defied easy description. Patches of space seemed to fold inward, creating brief, swirling vortices before disappearing. Around these distortions, normal space seemed to stretch and distort, like fabric being pulled from multiple directions. "What are we looking at, Doctor?" Elena asked quietly. "I don't know," Healy admitted. "These aren't natural phenomena. The quantum signatures are organized, almost like they're being generated deliberately." Before Elena could respond, Lieutenant Kim called out, "Captain, I'm detecting debris ahead." The view screen shifted to show scattered pieces of metal drifting in the void, unmistakably the remains of spacecraft. "Can you identify the origin?" Elena asked. After a moment's analysis, the tactical officer responded. "Multiple sources. Some appear to be Jalen design. Others match Galactic Alliance configurations, all heavily damaged." "The lost expeditions," Dr. Healy murmured. Elena nodded grimly. "Take us closer, but maintain safe distance. Doctor, I want detailed scans of that debris. Look for anything that might tell us what happened to them." As they maneuvered through the debris field, the communications officer suddenly straightened in his chair. "Captain, I'm picking up another signal. Different from the first. It's an automated distress beacon." "Source?" "It's coming from—" He hesitated, checking his readings. "A Jalen vessel, approximately 2,000 kilometers ahead. The signal is extremely weak." Elena considered her options. Her orders were clear: avoid contact with any Jalen forces. But a distress signal couldn't be ignored, regardless of its origin. "Set course for the beacon," she decided. "But approach with caution. This could be a trap." As the Perseus moved toward the source of the distress signal, the debris field grew more dense. They were now surrounded by the shattered remains of dozens of ships, a graveyard in space. "Energy readings ahead," reported the tactical officer, consistent with a powered-down Zaylan scout ship. "On screen," Elena ordered. The view screen revealed a Jalen vessel, its distinctive copper-colored hull now scarred and blackened. It drifted lifelessly among the debris, though faint lights indicated that some systems remained operational. "Life signs?" Elena asked. The tactical officer shook his head. "Inconclusive. The interference is too strong for accurate bioscans." "Dr. Healy, your assessment?" The scientist studied her readings intently. "The ship appears to have been attacked, but not by conventional weapons. The damage pattern is unusual. It's as if parts of the hull were simply removed, precisely excised." A chill ran down Elena's spine. "Like they were cut out." "Yes," Healy confirmed. "But no known weapon could create this kind of damage pattern." Elena made her decision. "Prepare a boarding party. I want to know what happened to that ship." As preparations were made, a message arrived from Earth Command. "Proceed with caution. Under no circumstances reveal to Jalen authorities that we have entered the dead zone." Elena stared at the message, feeling the weight of conflicting responsibilities. Her orders were clear, but so was her duty to potential survivors. "Captain," Dr. Healy approached, having read the message over her shoulder. "May I speak freely?" Elena nodded. "Are we really doing this for science, for knowledge, or are we pawns in some political game between Earth and the Jalen Empire?" It was a question Elena had asked herself repeatedly since accepting this mission. Does it matter? If there's something in the dead zone that poses a threat to Earth, to the Jalen, to the entire galaxy, don't we have a responsibility to find out what it is? Even at the cost of our crew, of potentially reigniting conflict with the Jalen? Elena had no easy answer. Before she could respond, the tactical officer called out urgently. "Captain, multiple contacts approaching from the edge of the dead zone." "Identify," Elena commanded, instantly alert. "Jalen vessels, Captain. A full battle group. They're on an intercept course." "How did they find us?" Lieutenant Kim demanded. "Our stealth systems are functioning." "They weren't looking for us," Dr. Healy realized. "They're responding to the distress beacon, just as we did." Elena's mind raced through options. If they were discovered here, it would confirm the Jalen's worst suspicions about Earth's intentions. It could lead to renewed conflict, possibly even war. "Withdraw to minimum safe distance," she ordered. "Maintain stealth protocols. Let them approach the derelict." As the Perseus backed away, they watched the Jalen vessels approach the damaged scout ship. The lead vessel was larger than the others, clearly a command ship. "That's the Vigilant Claw," the tactical officer identified. "Captain Arcthos Varen's vessel." Elena felt a knot form in her stomach. Varen was known for his hardline stance against humans. If anyone would use this incident to push for conflict, it would be him. They watched as the Jalen vessels surrounded the derelict, extending docking tubes. Then, without warning, a massive shockwave erupted from the center of the dead zone, washing over the assembled ships. "Brace for impact!" Elena shouted as the wave approached Perseus. The ship shuddered violently as the shockwave hit. systems flickering and alarms blaring. When it passed, Elena quickly checked her crew. Status report. Minor damage to outer hull plating. Engineer Reyes reported. No casualties. But Captain, the Jalen vessels? Elena looked at the view screen and felt her blood run cold. Where the Jalen battle group had been, now there was chaos. Several of the smaller vessels had been torn apart by the shockwave. The others, including the Vigilant Claw, were drifting, clearly damaged. But that wasn't what froze the blood in her veins. Beyond the Jalen vessels, deeper in the dead zone, something was moving, something massive. What is that? Lieutenant Kim whispered. On the screen, a shape was emerging from the darkness, a structure that seemed both organic and mechanical, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. It moved with fluid grace despite its enormous size, tentacle-like appendages extending toward the damaged Jalen ships. Tactical analysis, Elena demanded, her voice steady despite her horror. Unknown entity, the tactical officer responded. Size estimate, at least twice the volume of Perseus. Composition, uncertain. Our sensors can't penetrate its outer layer. It's not registering as matter as we understand it, Dr. Healy added, her voice hushed with awe and fear. The quantum readings are like nothing I've ever seen. They watched in stunned silence as the entity approached the nearest Jalen vessel. The tentacle-like appendages wrapped around the ship's hull, and then the ship began to dissolve, its structure seemingly absorbed into the entity. It's feeding, Dr. Healy whispered. All hands to battle stations, Elena ordered, snapping out of her shock. Arm all weapons. Prepare for emergency jump to safe coordinates. But before they could act, a transmission broke through their communication system, a Jalen distress call. To any vessels within range, a voice called, distorted but recognizable as Captain Varen's. We are under attack by unknown entities. Multiple ships lost. The dead zone defenses have awakened. Repeat, the Rexamorphs are active. Fall back to... The transmission cut off abruptly. Rexamorphs? Lieutenant Kim repeated. A Zalen term, Dr. Healy said. It appears they knew more about the dead zone than they've admitted. Elena made a swift decision. Move us in. Target the entity attacking the Vigilant Claw. Fire all forward weapons. Captain, the tactical officer questioned, surprised. Those are people out there, Elena said firmly. Whatever political differences exist between Earth and the Jalen Empire, we don't leave sentient beings to die. The Perseus surged forward, weapon systems coming online. Energy beams lanced out, striking the entity, the Rexamorph, that was attacking the Jalen command ship. For a moment, it seemed to have no effect. Then the creature's attention shifted, its massive form turning toward the new threat. It's releasing the Jalen vessel, the tactical officer reported. And it's coming for us. Evasive maneuvers, Elena ordered. Continue firing, all weapons. Find me a weakness. The Perseus banked sharply, narrowly avoiding the reaching tentacles of the Rexamorph. Their weapons continued to fire, but the energy beams seemed to be absorbed by the creature's strange form without causing damage. Our weapons are ineffective, the tactical officer reported grimly. Dr. Healy, I need options, Elena demanded. The scientist was frantically analyzing data. The entity appears to absorb energy. Conventional weapons won't work, but there's something unusual about its quantum structure. If we could generate a specific frequency of quantum disruption, can we modify our weapons to create that? Possibly, but I'll need time. Time is something we don't have, Elena said as the ship shuddered under the creature's first contact. Engineer Reyes, status of the AI core? Still offline. Captain, the quantum disruption is preventing a full reboot. Elena made a swift calculation. Divert all non-essential power to engines and shields. We need to buy Dr. Healy time to find a weakness. As the ship accelerated away from the Rexamorph, Elena opened a channel to the Jalen vessel. Vigilant Claw, This is Captain Elena Rourke of the UES Perseus. We are offering assistance. Please respond. After a tense moment, Varen's voice came through, strained but clear. Perseus, this is Captain Varen. Your assistance is acknowledged, but you should not be here. The dead zone is quarantined for a reason. We can discuss jurisdiction after we survive, Elena replied tersely. What do you know about these entities? A pause. Then, they are not individual organisms. They are components of a system, the Rexomorphs, ancient devourers that consume energy and matter, converting it to expand their network. They were sealed away millennia ago by the Erytheon civilization. Sealed how? A quantum containment field. The nanoflare technology. But the field has been weakening for centuries. We've been monitoring, trying to reinforce it, but now they're awake. Elena finished for him. And hungry. Yes, we must fall back, report to our governments. A combined fleet might... It would be devoured just like your battle group, Elena interrupted. We need a different approach. Dr. Healy believes there may be a way to disrupt their quantum structure. A longer pause. The Erytheon texts spoke of such a possibility, a resonance frequency that could destabilize the Rexomorph network. But the calculations were never completed. Share what you have, Elena urged. Dr. Healy might be able to fill in the gaps. Another hesitation, then, transmitting data now. As the information flowed to Dr. Healy's station, the Rexomorph continued its pursuit, joined now by several smaller entities that had emerged from deeper within the dead zone. Multiple contacts, the tactical officer reported. At least 5 more entities, similar composition to the first. They're converging on us, Lieutenant Kim added. Escape vectors are being cut off. Elena felt the weight of command press down on her. She had led her crew into this death trap, and now their survival depended on a theoretical weapon based on alien mathematics they barely understood. Dr. Healy, status, she demanded. The Zaylan data is fascinating, the scientist replied, her fingers flying over her console. They've been studying the Rexomorphs for generations. According to this, the entities are attracted to quantum energy waves emitted from a structure deep inside the dead zone, what they call the nanoflare pit. It's where the Rexomorphs were originally contained, where they hibernate. The containment field has been failing gradually, allowing them to awaken. Can we use that against them? Lure them back to containment somehow? Dr. Healy's eyes lit up. Perhaps, if we could reach the nanoflare pit, we might be able to reactivate the containment field. But what? The pit is at the very center of the dead zone. No ship has ever penetrated that deep and returned. Elena looked at the view screen, where the Rexomorphs were closing in, their strange forms distorting the very space around them. Behind them, the Zaylan vessels were attempting to regroup, but several more had been consumed. She made her decision. Set course for the center of the dead zone, maximum speed. Captain, Lieutenant Kim questioned, shock evident in her voice. You heard me, Lieutenant. If we can't escape, we go forward. Dr. Healy, work with Engineer Reyes. I want that quantum disruption weapon ready by the time we reach the pit. As the crew moved to obey, Elena opened a channel to the Vigilant Claw again. Captain Varen, we're proceeding to the nanoflare pit. We're going to attempt to reactivate the containment field. That's suicide, Varen responded immediately. The center of the dead zone is where the distortion is strongest. Your ship won't survive the approach. Perhaps. But if we don't try, none of us will survive anyway. The Rexomorphs will continue to awaken, to feed. Eventually, they'll break free of the dead zone entirely. A long pause. You're right, but you'll need help. I'm dispatching what remains of my battle group to provide cover for your approach. Elena hadn't expected that. Thank you, Captain. Don't thank me yet. Captain Rourke, if by some miracle we survive this, you'll still have to answer for your unauthorized presence in the dead zone. Despite everything, Elena found herself smiling. I look forward to that court-martial, Captain Varen. The Perseus accelerated toward the heart of the dead zone, the remaining Jalen vessels falling into formation around it. Behind them, the Rexamorphs pursued, their strange forms flowing through space with unnatural grace. As they penetrated deeper into the dead zone, the distortions grew more severe. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around them, creating visual hallucinations and sensor ghosts. Structural integrity at 87% and falling, Engineer Reyes reported. The quantum distortions are affecting our hull molecular cohesion. Compensate as best you can, Elena ordered. How much farther to the pit? Approximately 10,000 kilometers, Lieutenant Kim answered. But at current speed, and accounting for the increasing spatial distortion. We'll break apart before we get there, Dr. Healy finished grimly. Elena refused to accept that. Options? Dr. Healy studied her console. The Jalen data suggests that the distortions follow a pattern, quantum waves that emanate from the pit itself. If we could synchronize our shields to resonate at the inverse frequency. Would that work? Elena asked Engineer Reyes. The engineer considered. Theoretically, but it would require precise calculations and timing. One mistake, and the resonance could tear us apart faster than the distortions would. Do it, Elena decided. And prepare the quantum disruption weapon. If we reach the pit, we'll only have one shot. As the crew worked frantically to implement the plan, the Rexamorphs drew closer. Two of the Jalen vessels were overtaken, their structures dissolving as the entities engulfed them. They're gaining on us, the tactical officer reported tensely. Time to the pit. 5 minutes at current speed. Elena opened a channel to the remaining Jalen vessels. All ships, concentrate fire on the largest entity. We need to slow them down. The combined firepower of the human and Jalen ships seemed to have little effect on the Rexamorphs. But it did appear to distract them, buying precious seconds. Shield resonance calibrated, Engineer Reyes announced. Activating now. The effect was immediate. The visual distortions around the ship lessened, and the structural integrity alarms quieted. It's working, Dr. Healy confirmed. We're creating a bubble of stable space around the ship. Excellent. Time to the pit? 3 minutes. Elena allowed herself a moment of hope. They might actually reach their destination. But what then? The Jalen data was incomplete. The Eretheon technology alien and ancient. Could they really reactivate a containment field that had been failing for centuries? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alarm. Captain, the resonance is destabilizing, Engineer Reyes called out. The quantum fluctuations are adapting, changing frequency. Can you compensate? Trying, but the pattern is complex. It's almost as if... As if what? Elena demanded when he hesitated. As if it's intelligent. As if it's deliberately countering our efforts. Dr. Healy's eyes widened. The Rexamorphs. They're not just physical entities. They're a quantum intelligence. They're actively fighting our countermeasures. The ship shuddered violently as the distortions intensified again. Hull breach on Deck 4, the tactical officer reported. Emergency force fields holding, but structural integrity is dropping rapidly. Time to the pit? 1 minute! Elena made a swift decision. Divert all power from weapons to shields and structural integrity. We need to reach that pit intact. As the Perseus pushed forward, the space ahead began to change. The darkness of the void gave way to a strange, pulsating light, white with hints of other colors that seemed to shift in and out of the visible spectrum. The nanoflare pit, Dr. Healy breathed, awe evident in her voice despite their dire situation. On the view screen, they could see it now, a massive structure at the heart of the dead zone, radiating quantum energy in waves that distorted the surrounding space. It resembled a gigantic, crystalline flower, its petals folded inward around a core of blinding white light. It's beautiful, Lieutenant Kim whispered. And deadly, Elena reminded them. Status of the quantum disruption weapon? Ready, Engineer Reyes confirmed. But, Captain, there's a problem. The weapon's effective range is limited. We'll need to get much closer to the pit to deploy it successfully. How close? Reyes hesitated. Essentially, inside it. A heavy silence fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. Inside, Elena repeated. You're saying we need to fly Perseus directly into the nanoflare pit to activate the weapon? Yes, Captain. The quantum resonance needs to be applied directly to the core. From this distance, it would dissipate before reaching the target. Elena looked at the view screen, where the beautiful, terrible structure grew larger as they approached. Behind them, the Rexamorphs continued their pursuit, having consumed all but one of the Jalen vessels. If we enter the pit, she asked quietly, can we exit again? Dr. Healy and Engineer Reyes exchanged a look. It was Healy who answered. Unknown, Captain. The quantum energies within the pit are beyond our understanding. If the weapon works, if we can reactivate the containment field, the Rexamorphs would be sealed away again, but we would likely be sealed with them. Elena nodded slowly, having expected that answer. And if we don't enter the pit? If we turn back now? The Rexamorphs will consume us, just as they have the Jalen vessels, Dr. Healy said simply. And eventually, they will grow strong enough to break free of the dead zone entirely. They will spread throughout the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. The choice was clear, though no less painful for its clarity. All hands, Elena announced, her voice steady. Prepare for final approach to the nanoflare pit. Lieutenant Kim, plot a direct course to the core. Engineer Reyes, ready the quantum disruption weapon for manual activation. As the crew moved to obey, some with fear in their eyes, others with grim determination, Elena opened a channel to the last remaining Jalen vessel, the Vigilant Claw. Captain Varen, this is Rourke. We've reached the nanoflare pit. Our analysis indicates we can reactivate the containment field using a quantum disruption weapon, but it must be deployed directly within the pit's core. You're going in, Varen stated, understanding immediately. Yes, we wanted you to know, so you can report what happened here. Make sure our sacrifice means something. A long pause. Your courage honors your species, Captain Rourke. I have misjudged humans, it seems. We're all just trying to protect what we care about, Elena replied. Sometimes that puts us at odds. Sometimes it brings us together. Indeed. Another pause. We will bear witness to your actions here today. Your crew will be remembered with honor. Thank you. Elena hesitated, then added, Captain, there's something else you should know. The Rexamorphs. They're intelligent. They adapt. The containment might not hold forever. The galaxy should be prepared. Should they ever break free again? Understood. I will make sure that warning is heeded. A final pause. Farewell, Captain Rourke. May the stars guide your journey. As the communication ended, Elena turned to face her crew. Many were looking to her for reassurance she couldn't honestly give. They were about to fly into the heart of the most dangerous anomaly in known space, with little hope of return. I won't lie to you, she said, her voice carrying clearly across the bridge. What we're about to do is likely a one-way journey, but it's a necessary one. If we don't stop the Rexamorphs here, today, they will eventually break free of the dead zone. They will spread throughout the galaxy, consuming everything in their path, including Earth, including everyone we've ever loved. She paused, looking from face to face. I didn't order any of you to join this mission. You all volunteered, knowing the risks. Now I'm asking you to take one final risk, to make one final sacrifice. Not for Earth, not for politics or borders or any of the things we normally fight over, but for life itself, in all its forms, throughout the galaxy. A moment of silence. Then Combat Sergeant Malik Jung spoke up. I'm with you, Captain. to the end. One by one, the other crew members nodded their agreement. Even those whose faces showed fear nodded their determination. "Thank you," Elena said simply. Then, turning to Lieutenant Kim, "Take us in, full power." The Perseus surged forward, directly toward the heart of the nanoflare pit. As they approached, the quantum distortions intensified, the ship shuddering violently despite their countermeasures. "Structural integrity at 62% and falling," Engineer Reyes reported. "We're holding together, but barely." "Stay on course," Elena ordered. "Dr. Healy, what can you tell us about what we're seeing?" The scientist was studying her readings with intense concentration. "The pit is a quantum server of sorts, designed by the Erytheon civilization. It generates the containment field that has kept the Rexamorphs sealed away. But as the field weakened, some managed to escape. Now they're trying to destroy the pit entirely, to free the rest of their kind. And our weapon will strengthen the field. If it works as we hope, it will regenerate the original containment protocols. Essentially, we're rebooting the system, forcing it back to its original state." As they penetrated the outer layers of the pit, the visual display became overwhelming. Patterns of light and energy that seemed to shift and change, even as they watched. The ship's systems began to fail under the quantum assault, consoles sparking and displays flickering. "We're losing main power," Engineer Reyes called out. "Switching to emergency systems." Distance to the core? 1,000 meters, 800, 600. The ship lurched violently, throwing several crew members from their stations. "Hull breach on decks 2 and 3, the tactical officer reported. "Emergency force fields failing." "Reroute all remaining power to forward shields and the weapon system," Elena ordered. "Everything else is secondary." As they pushed deeper into the pit, the Rexamorphs pursuing them suddenly hesitated, as if reluctant to follow. Then, with what seemed like renewed determination, they surged forward again, their tentacle-like appendages reaching for the Perseus. "They know what we're trying to do," Dr. Healy realized. "They're trying to stop us." "They're too late," Elena said grimly. "Distance to core? 200 meters. 150. "Weapon status?" "Armed and ready," Engineer Reyes confirmed. "But, Captain, the targeting system is offline. Someone will need to activate it manually, from the weapon control room." Elena nodded. "I'll do it, Dr. Healy. You have the bridge. Get as many of the crew to the escape pods as possible." "The escape pods won't survive in this environment," Healy protested. "They might, if the weapon works. If the containment field reactivates, it could stabilize the space around the pit. It's a slim chance, but it's better than no chance at all." Before Healy could argue further, Elena headed for the turbolift. "Deck 5, weapon control," she ordered as the doors closed. The journey through the failing ship was harrowing. Emergency lights flickered, and the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Twice, Elena had to force her way through damaged sections, the heat of electrical fires scorching her uniform. When she finally reached the weapon control room, she found it in chaos. The quantum distortions had wreaked havoc on the sensitive equipment, and the main console was sparking dangerously. Elena moved quickly to the backup terminal, relieved to find it still operational. She began the activation sequence, her fingers flying over the controls with practiced efficiency. "Bridge to Captain," Dr. Healy's voice came over the comm. "We've reached the core. The Rexamorphs are right behind us. Whatever you're going to do it now." "Initiating quantum disruption sequence," Elena responded. "Stand by." As she completed the final commands, the ship shuddered more violently than ever. Warning alarms blared, and the deck beneath her feet seemed to shift and warp. "Structural integrity failing," Engineer Reyes's voice called over the comm. "We're breaking apart." Elena finished the sequence and hit the activation key. "Weapon firing now!" For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a wave of energy pulsed outward from the Perseus, invisible except for how it distorted the light around it. It spread in all directions, faster and faster, until it reached the walls of the pit. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The pulsating lights of the pit changed, shifting from their chaotic patterns to a steady, synchronized rhythm. The quantum distortions around the ship began to stabilize, the violent shaking subsiding. "It's working!" Dr. Healy exclaimed over the comm. "The containment field is reactivating!" But their victory was not without cost. As the field strengthened, it began to pull at the ship, the enormous energies threatening to tear it apart. "All hands to escape pods," Elena ordered, making her way back toward the bridge. "Abandon ship. Repeat. All hands abandon ship." She fought her way through the buckling corridors, determined to reach her crew. When she finally emerged onto the bridge, she found Dr. Healy still at her station. "I ordered an evacuation," Elena said, breathing heavily from her exertion. "Someone needed to maintain course," Healy replied calmly. "Besides, the escape pods launched a moment ago. The remaining crew is on their way there now." Elena moved to her command chair, activating the ship-wide comm. "All personnel, status report." "Engineering teams evacuated," Engineer Reyes reported. "Last escape pod launching now." "Tactical teams clear," came another report. One by one, the departments confirmed evacuation, all except the bridge crew. "You should go," Elena told Dr. Healy. "Take the last pod." "With respect, Captain, I think I'll stay." The scientist offered a small smile. "Someone should record what happens, for science." Elena found herself returning the smile despite everything. "For science." Together, they watched as the pit's energies surrounded them. The Rexamorphs that had been pursuing them were caught in the containment field. Their forms stretched and distorted as they were pulled back toward the core. "It's beautiful in its way," Dr. Healy observed. "Like watching the birth of a star in reverse." The ship's structural integrity continued to fail, systems shutting down one by one. The view screen flickered and died, leaving only the emergency lighting to illuminate the bridge. "Do you think the escape pods will make it?" Elena asked quietly. "I don't know," Healy admitted, "but they have a better chance than we do." As the ship began its final breakdown, Elena thought of the journey that had brought her here. The border wars, the loss of her previous command, the political maneuvering that had led to this mission. None of it seemed to matter now. "You asked me once why I volunteered for this mission," she said to Dr. Healy. "Why I would risk everything on what might be a one-way journey." Healy looked at her questioningly. "I told you it was because someone needed to bring back a warning if something dangerous was contained within the dead zone. But that wasn't the whole truth." Elena gazed at the emergency lights, flickering as the power failed. "I volunteered because after losing my last command, I couldn't bear the thought of losing another crew. I thought I could protect them better if I was the one making the decisions." "You did protect them," Healy said gently. "You gave them a chance to escape, and you saved countless lives across the galaxy. The Rexamorphs would have broken free eventually." Elena nodded, finding comfort in that thought as the ship shuddered around them. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you stayed." "As am I," Healy replied. "It's been an honor, Captain." "The honor was mine, Doctor." As the Perseus finally succumbed to the enormous energy surrounding it, a white shockwave exploded outward from the nanoflare pit. It engulfed the Rexamorphs, pulling them back into containment, and created a new emptiness where the dead zone had been, a clean zone where no trace of the enemy remained. In the aftermath, when the explosion had subsided, signals from Perseus and any ships that had followed it were instantly lost. The entire area displayed only a dark, static space, without light rays or radio waves. The surrounding stars flickered off for a few seconds, then returned to normal. Earth officially reported, Perseus and crew did not return. Survival probability is near zero, but the achievement is that the dead zone has disappeared. The Jalen were conflicted. They couldn't stop us from entering the dead zone. Became, is the dead zone now clean, or did they self-destruct? We must dispatch reconnaissance ships urgently. The Galactic Federation quarantined the new space for survey. Exploration ships recorded a stable environment, with sensors reporting tiny quantum energy still remaining as evidence of the explosion. The legacy of Perseus lived on. The Galactic Science Committee established the Elena Rourke Scholarship for officers and scientists who risked exploring dangerous space areas. A memorial at the nearest pair of star systems was named Perseus to commemorate the raid into the dead zone. When a Xalan exploration ship approached the clean zone months later, they detected a faint quantum signal pulse that no one could decode. The message simply repeated, "We are returning." At an observation station on Earth, a lone figure stood before a view screen, displaying the region once known as the Dead Zone. Dr. Mara Healy had been listed among the casualties of the Perseus mission, another name on the memorial that now orbited Earth. But records could be falsified, especially when powerful interests deemed it necessary. She studied the readings from the clean zone, her expression troubled. The quantum fluctuations were subtle, barely detectable even with the most advanced equipment. But they were there, and they were increasing. "They're not gone," she murmured to herself. "Just displaced to another dimensional plane, and they're finding their way back." She turned away from the screen, moving to a secure terminal. Her fingers flew over the keys as she composed a message to the handful of people who knew the truth, that she had survived, rescued from an escape pod that had somehow been ejected from the quantum maelstrom of the nanoflare pit. "Phase 3 is beginning," she wrote. "Prepare the next expedition." As she sent the message, she glanced once more at the view screen. The clean zone appeared peaceful, empty. But Healy knew better. The Rexamorphs were patient. They had waited millennia to break free the first time. They would wait again, gathering strength, adapting to the containment field that had failed once before. And when they returned, the galaxy would need to be ready. In the vast emptiness where the dead zone had once been, something stirred. Not matter as humans understood it, not energy in any conventional sense, but a presence, a consciousness spread across quantum states. "We are returning," it pulsed into the void. "We are returning." And the stars seemed to dim, just for a moment, as if in fearful anticipation.